So if you're a golfer who's really serious about improving and wants to do it with a launch monitor that you'll use on your home setup, it's really important to make sure you're matching up your hardware and software. And I think SkyTrak is doing one of the best jobs with their newer release, the SkyTrak Plus, and their software suite at giving golfers a ton of options to challenge themselves, get more data to make better decisions on the course. So in this video, I'm going to go a little bit more in depth on the game improvement features of the SkyTrak software, and more importantly, how they can help you become a better golfer. Hi, my name is Jon Sherman. I am the author of The 4 Foundations of Golf. I've been writing, talking, and making videos about game improvement since 2015. And for a long time, I used the original SkyTrak to gather a lot of my data for my website with all kinds of testing, but more importantly, I used it as an incredible practice tool to become a better driver of the golf ball, a better wedge player, and really fine-tune my irons. And like many of you, I live in a cold weather climate in the Northeast, where I use the SkyTrak in the off season to really improve the parts of my game that were lacking. So I'm going to take you through the 5 main features of the SkyTrak software suite and kind of give it my spin on how you can use it to get better. So if you're still deciding to buy the SkyTrak and comparing it against another launch monitor, or maybe you just purchased it and you're looking for some ideas, I'll kind of give you my bread and butter thoughts on the features that it has in the software. So one of my personal favorites that has been around for years is the Wedge Matrix, and it can help you master what many would refer to as the scoring zone. I would call it awkward wedge distances. So a lot of golfers get stuck in these situations when they're maybe laying up on a par 5, it's a short par 4, or perhaps they were getting out of a recovery situation, and now they're faced with that awkward wedge distance of 40 to 80 yards. And a lot of golfers don't practice these shots. They don't know what club to pull. They don't know to swing at 50% or 75%. And that's where the Wedge Matrix is so incredible in its value. So what essentially it does is it takes you through a test of different distances, and you can experiment with different wedges in your bag. So for example, if you were hitting a 75-yard shot, you can maybe try a pitching wedge at 50% or a 75% gap wedge, or maybe it's a full lob wedge or 56 degree with you. Essentially what you're doing is you're experimenting with different lofts and different swing intentions. For some people, it might be the length of their backswing. They're going back 50 or 75%. Or for others, it could just be perceived effort with your swing speed. Either way, the Wedge Matrix is going to test you and give you the answers to find out which club and which intention gives you the tightest dispersion around each yardage. So for example, for a 50-yard shot, you might find out that you're best with your 56 degree at about a 60% intention. For me, I like to use my lob wedge for all these awkward wedge distances. But the real benefit of using it is that it gets you practicing them more often, it gets you honing your technique, and more importantly, it will make you a better course manager so that when you're faced with that 70-yard shot, you'll know, oh, that's my sand wedge at a 60% intent because I tested it on my SkyTrak. So I still think this is one of the best features of the software suite. The next feature I've always loved is bag mapping. If you want to become a better golfer and lower your handicap, you have to select the right target and club on the course, especially with your approach clubs. We now know this is where golfers separate the most in scoring, so your irons are truly your scoring clubs. And one of the biggest mistakes that all golfers make at every level is they're not taking enough club and they're not honest with their distances. For years, I've worked with shot tracking companies like Arcos and ShotScope, and they've given me access to their data. And whether you're a 5 handicap, 15, or 20, most golfers are missing their targets short of the green, because they think the one time they nuked their 7-iron 170 yards, well, then they should pull that club every time they have a 170-yard target. And the truth is less sexy. So the bag mapping feature is quite simple. You're going to hit a series of shots with every club in your bag, and SkyTrak is going to figure out what is a more accurate carry distance for you. So that 7-iron might be a 158-yard club when you thought it was a 170-yard club. Your pitching wedge could be a 115-yard club when you were pulling it at 125. Or maybe it's vice versa for you. Either way, you can benchmark your data in a risk-free environment so that you can go on the course with more confidence that you're pulling the right club for the distance you're trying to hit it. And for extra credit, you could track your shots on the course with a system like Arccos or ShotScope, and then cross-reference what you're seeing with your 7-iron carry distance and full distance on the course versus what you see on the bag mapping feature on the SkyTrak. And because SkyTrak is incredibly accurate, you will know that these distances are quite accurate. So do not sleep on the bag mapping feature. It could easily save you 3 to 5 strokes per round just by making smarter decisions with your approach clubs and wedges. Now, a newer feature that recently came out with the release of SkyTrak Plus are their new range environments. So SkyTrak is a sister company with GolfTech now, which is one of the biggest teaching companies in the United States now. They have a ton of instructors and they also have a ton of data. So they're starting to integrate their findings into SkyTrak with these new range environments and the shot optimizer, which I'll get into shortly. So the range environments are awesome because they test something that I call self-organization. This is kind of an advanced motor learning phrase, but golf instructors have been using it for years. For example, the legendary teacher Harvey Penick, if he knew a golfer was kind of scooping it and hitting it too high, he would simply leave them under a tree for an hour and walk away, because that physical barrier would force the golfer to start making some adjustments. Maybe they would add more shaft lean, maybe they would move the ball farther back in their stance to keep the ball below that tree. And that is essentially what self-organization is. You're kind of being an athlete to figure out how to curve the ball or keep it below a certain trajectory or even higher. And that's exactly what these range environments do. You can create fairways that are surrounded by water to put more pressure on each shot. I love that they have physical barriers like walls and trees that will force you to maybe hit a draw around it or hit a lower shot to keep it below the tree. These are really fun and challenging things that you can do in your practice sessions to, again, build more ball striking skills. You're going to be adjusting your club path, your face angle, something that you can track on SkyTrak now, and see how you have to adjust them to accomplish the goal. And this is how you transfer your skills in the practice area onto the course, which is honestly the biggest frustration that I hear from golfers, is that they hit it great on the range and that golfers nowhere to be found on the course. And I think using these different simulated range environments can help bridge that gap and help build real ball striking skills. So this is one of my favorite new features that is part of the SkyTrak software suite. Another feature that's been around for years is the player skill assessment. So this is similar to something that Foresight or even TrackMan would offer, where you're going to hit a series of shots from different distances and then you're going to kind of get a grade at the end of it. So the reason I love this is because it is a form of random practice. You're going to be hitting different clubs to different targets rather than hitting the same shot over and over again, which is called block practice. I'm not against it, but some golfers just overdose on it. So in the skills assessment, you can pick up to 10 different yardages and you'll hit a series of different shots to each target. And at the end of it, you'll get a dynamic handicap. So that's going to take into account how well your north to south distance control was, in addition to your left and right dispersion. And I love this because, again, it makes you cycle through your bag and reset your target. But more importantly, if you're a competitive golfer and you like to get those juices flowing, you're going to start getting scores that you want to beat time and time again. So I think this is one of the best practice features that you can do over time. And obviously you want to see if that dynamic handicap will get lower and lower as your ball striking improves. And of course, you can always refer to the metrics that SkyTrak is giving you along the way, whether that's launch angle, spin rate, or some club head metrics like your club path or face angle to help you get the ball closer to the target. So one of the newest features that you'll see on SkyTrak Plus is the shot optimizer. This is something that GolfTech has kind of optimized for them. So whether you're in the range environment or doing one of these skills assessment, you're going to see that different tiles on the screen will either be green, orange, or red, showing you if they're optimal, kind of just outside of optimal, or just plain bad, which would be red. So I think this can be a very useful feature if you keep it simple. So on the original SkyTrak, I didn't have access to the shot optimizer, but I educated myself on optimal ball flight for my driver, for example. And I was working on things like my spin rate, ball speed, and launch angle. So now when I practice my driver with the new shot optimizer, I can see which one of these metrics are more dialed in. Sometimes golfers launch it way too low with too much spin, and you would clearly see that with the shot optimizer if a certain metric or several of them are out of whack. So you might need to adjust your club head delivery. You might need to address your setup. For example, with your driver, that could be your tee height or ball position. Those play a huge role in your ball flight and the efficiency of it. And you could also use this, let's say, on your wedges. So a lot of golfers hit their wedges with too much launch angle and too much spin. Really good wedge players are generally keeping it in a window of 30 to 32 degrees of launch angle or less, and they can spin those intermediate wedges anywhere between 7, 8 to even 10,000 RPM. So as you're hitting wedge shots, again, you can see which of these metrics is optimal and which one is not. Now, I would caution you not to go down the rabbit hole with this metric. I mentioned in another video that a lot of my iron shots are very low spin because that's just my DNA as a ball striker. And I know that I'm hitting very functional shots on the course. I've become a plus handicap and a pretty good iron player. But yes, the SkyTrak is giving me some red indicators on my spin rates. So I have to take those with a little grain of salt. So if you're not educated on how ball flight laws work and how it works all together, you can certainly consult a teacher to help you analyze all of this stuff. And it actually can help you make better club decisions as well if you need to change the loft on your driver or perhaps get a new set of wedges because the spin rate's not as high anymore. Again, you could always work with a club fitter and share this data with them, and that's why it's so helpful. So overall, I think SkyTrak has continually made their software better over the last 10 years, and the recent changes make it what I believe one of the best value propositions in the industry. It's only $129 a year to get access to all these features. And as I said earlier, this is one of the best consumer-focused products on the market. You can do dispersion tests with it. You can assess your skills with different clubs in your bag. It's really designed with the normal golfer in mind and not necessarily a professional grade product like some of the other softwares out there. So if you have any questions about how it all works and you want more assistance in guiding your decision-making over which launch monitor to purchase, feel free to reach out to the Indoor Golf Shop's staff and their team of experts. You can call them, you can email them, you can chat with them, and they are happy to answer your questions.